Hey guys, the Nessologist here. Thank you guys for joining me for this very special video. 5 long weeks ago, we together started a tournament on Twitter. We together picked 64 of the best games of the 90s, what we thought best represented that decade, and we put them all against each other. And little by little, they've been getting eliminated through 5 rounds, and now we finally have a winner. And in this video, I'm going to reveal to you what that winner is. But as a special treat to you guys, I have compiled, based on your votes, what are the top 10 games of the 90s. I based this completely off of your votes, and we're going to go down the list and, of course, eventually reveal what the number 1 game of the 90s was. I want to, again, thank you guys so much for coming and voting in each of these polls. I couldn't have done this without your guys' support, and it's been a lot of fun doing this. So I hope you enjoy this video. Let's kick it off with number 10. Oh yes, I think we all knew that this game was going to be in the top 10. Final Fantasy VII is arguably the best game in the entire series. And that's really saying something, since Final Fantasy is arguably one of the best video game franchises of all time. Regardless, Final Fantasy VII is well deserving of a spot in the top 10. You know, when you see that Capcom logo on a game, you know you're in for a treat. And Resident Evil 2 is no different. You guys showed up, voted for this game, and showed that Resident Evil can stand tall in a land of giants. Chrono Trigger was one of my personal favorites in this tournament, and I'm so happy to have it in this top 10 list. With a combat system that was just a cut above any other RPG of its time, it just oozes SNES goodness. This was a Game Boy game in the early 90s that to this day I can't believe they crammed as much video game as they did into this little tiny cartridge. Zelda Link's Awakening is not only one of the best Zelda games of all time, but one of the best games of all time, and you guys showed up and voted for it. And I know my friend Game Consolers is going to be thrilled to see this game on the top 10 games of the 90s. Banjo Kazooie didn't just let you explore a world, it allowed you to explore a world filled with interesting things to discover and collect. This game had so much hype going for it that despite the fact that Resident Evil 2 beat this game in the round of 16, Banjo Kazooie still outdid it for total number of votes to beat it out in the top 10 games of the 90s. You know, I'm honestly surprised that Mario Kart 64 made it as high as it did on this list. But then I stopped to think about it. Mario Kart is an uber successful franchise that, you know, if it wasn't for games like Mario Kart 64, the franchise may not have taken off the way that it did. There are still tracks used today that came from Mario Kart 64, and there's really no denying that it's one of the best games of the 90s. On pretty much every list that I've looked at of best games of all time, Zelda Ocarina of Time is on just about every single one of them. So I knew that this game was going to be a contender at some point during this tournament. And despite the fact that it was beat in the semifinals, this game still managed to accumulate more votes than one of the finalists in this tournament. I think that's really a testament of how great this game is. I can still remember going to Toys R Us as a kid and seeing a display with a Nintendo 64 and a copy of Super Mario 64 on the screen. I remember grabbing that controller and my mind being absolutely blown and being completely confused at the same time of not knowing what to do in a three-dimensional world. This game set the foundation for what a good 3D game is supposed to be, and that's why it's one of the top 3 on this list. There is one Mario game that could outdo Super Mario 64, and it did it by 1 vote. That game is none other than Super Mario World. This game is absolutely fantastic. It's one of the best Mario games of all time, in my opinion, and you guys came out in full support of it and showed that by one vote, this game could reign supreme in the Mario world. Before we reveal our best game of the 90s, here are a few honorable mentions. Alright guys, this is it. The moment of truth. After 5 long weeks of voting, you guys have showed up round by round, poll by poll, submitting your votes, submitting feedback, leaving me comments of what games you think are deserving, and finally we've narrowed it down to this. And Zelda: Link to the Past is your winner. I really don't think that that's a bad choice. Zelda: Link to the Past is really one of the best games of all time. I mean, when I think of this game, I can picture it in my head. I can hear the music, I can see the characters. It's a game that I've never personally beaten, but I still know it very well because it's just that good. You guys, I think, made a great choice for your best game of the 90s. Zelda: Link to the Past. So there you guys have it. That is your best games of the 90s based on your votes. And speaking of votes, I want to thank you all so much for coming out and voting in all of these polls. It really, each round, there was more and more support, and it just kept building, and it was so much fun to watch these polls. You guys are absolutely amazing. Please subscribe to my channel. I want to bring you guys more content. In fact, next week, I want to bring you guys another top 10 games of the 90s that are my own personal favorites. So subscribe to my channel now and hit that little notification bell as well. And stay tuned for my latest videos that I'm going to be coming out with. You guys, again, awesome. I will see you all next time on Nessology. Bye-bye.